Hi, so today I'm going to be talking about my favorite part of the brain, which is the hippocampus, and more specifically, I'm going to talk about exercise and how exercise affects the hippocampus. So, before we begin getting into research and a little bit of an overview of the hippocampus, I'm first going to talk about why it is my favorite part of the brain. Now, since my freshman year in college, when I took psychology, it is always something of a subject that stuck out to me, and I still remember my teacher first when she first started talking about it. And the next part is why I want to combine it with exercise. I am a pre PT major and I love exercises, and seeing how those two work together is something that has always fascinated me. And so today I did a little bit more research into how exercise affects the hippocampus, and I'm going to be sharing that information with you today. So, first, let's begin with an overview of the hippocampus, as is a part of the limbic system, and its main functions are in long term memory and learning. Your hippocampus is deep in your temporal lobe and curves just around the cerebral hemisphere from the midline and then runs up to the temporal lobe. And any damage to the hippocampus in either of its hemispheres on the left or right side can result in damage to your memory where you are unable to form new memories. So, one disease that I wanted to bring in before I start going into research is Alzheimer's disease, because when you exercise, this is something that you're going to be able to slow down. And Alzheimer's disease is one that affects the hippocampus, especially in its early stages, and will cause rapid loss of its tissues. And we begin to start seeing atrophy in both of hemispheres of the hippocampus and the temporal region as well. And right now, there's no known cure for Alzheimer's, but we do know a way that we can slow it down. So, this is where I'm going to start getting into the research. And the research I looked at was how cardiorespiratory fitness and how that affects the hippocampus. And specifically in studies, they looked at its gray matter. And with a base trial of running a VO2 max test and doing a ton of aerobic exercise training, they were able to find out through MRI images that they're increasing the size of the hippocampus and an increase in the gray matter size there as well. And in the control group that did not participate in any exercising, they found that their hippocampal volume started to decline when they were not participating in any aerobic exercise. Now, this told us basically that exercising is really good for your brain, and it helps increase the size, the gray matter, which affects its memory, increasing that as well as its learning. And in the photo, this looked at a study looking at resistance training and how it affected its connectivity after 2 days. So, young adults did 2 days of activity, and it showed an increase of effectiveness, improving both its memory and brain function, as you can see in the graph. From the bottom left photo is day one, and then hours later, they saw that it was activated even more. Now, something else that I wanted to talk about real quick is brain-derived neurotrophic plasticity, and or BDNF. And BDNF is a protein that is in your brain, and this plays a role in neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. And they found that when you do any aerobic exercise at a moderate intensity, it helps induce the binding of BDNF, and this when it increases neurogenesis, this helps form new cells, and this has an effect on your hippocampus and helps increase its learning and memory. So, in conclusion, in this presentation, I showed you how exercise is affecting the hippocampus and how research has shown that for two ways you can either increase, especially as a young adult, you can increase the size of your hippocampus and help better your learning as well as your long-term memory. And for any older adult, doing exercise, especially before the age of 50, you're helping reduce the risk of developing Alzheimer's. Or if you catch it, if you start exercising when you're in the early stages of Alzheimer's, you're going to help slow down the effect of it so it doesn't hit you all at once. And then these are my references that I use to find all my research. Thank you.